That night, I worked late. By the time I finished, it was almost 11:30. I drained the last sip of cold, flavorless coffee, turned off my desk lamp, grabbed my car keys, and headed for the parking lot. The building was nearly dark, only a few dim security lights left on. The hallway was so quiet I could hear my own footsteps. All I wanted was to get home, take a hot shower, and collapse in bed. The streets outside were nearly empty. The street lamps were scattered and weak, the pavement reflecting their pale light. A convenience store was still open, the bored cashier inside scrolling on their phone. I stopped at a red light and watched a trash bin on the corner sway slightly in the wind. The road ahead was a long stretch through the woods. No one used it at night except me. It was my shortcut home, 10 minutes, and I'd be there. I cracked the window to let the cool night air in. The radio hummed low with some old song. My headlights swept over the asphalt, scattering the shadows of the trees. The quiet of that road always had a way of making the air feel hollow. Halfway through, I saw her. She stood under a weak street lamp, arms hanging by her sides, head slightly bowed. Her hair was messy, her clothes indistinct in the dark. The wind stirred the leaves, the road was empty, and it was just her and me. I slowed, pulled over, rolled down the window. She didn't speak, just lifted her head and looked at me, her eyes almost pleading. Something about it made my chest tighten. I got out and asked if she needed help. She nodded slowly, lips moving without sound. She shivered, so I motioned for her to get in. She opened the back door stiffly, sat down empty-handed, and shut it with a dull thud. In the mirror, she sat perfectly still, hands on her knees. I asked where she lived. No answer. I said I'd head toward the city, and she could tell me where to stop. Nothing, just the faint tilt of her head. The road grew darker, streetlights fewer. Her reflection stayed motionless, slightly blurred. I tried again. You okay back there? This time she moved a little, maybe nodded, but I couldn't be sure. I thought about taking her to the nearest police station, but I didn't want to scare her. I kept driving. After about 10 minutes, we reached a brighter strip of road, some restaurants, a gas station. I pulled over to try again. When I looked back, she was gone. The seat was empty, clean, like no one had ever been there. I stepped out, checked the back, nothing. The wind rustled the leaves, my skin prickled with cold sweat. I told myself I was just tired, that maybe I'd imagined it. But I knew she had been in the car, 5 minutes from home. I glanced in the mirror. She was there again, same posture, same lowered head, silent. My throat went dry. I kept my eyes on the road, my hands slipping on the steering wheel from sweat. I parked in my spot and got out without looking back, leaving the car unlocked. In the elevator, I caught myself glancing over my shoulder. In the mirrored door, nothing there. I turned on every light in my apartment and didn't sleep a second. The next morning, the car was still in place, the back seat still spotless. I tried to live normally for a few days, taking a longer route home to avoid that road. But one foggy night, I saw her again walking alongside my car, head bowed, moving slowly. She stopped in front of me, lifted her head, and stared. From then on, she appeared every night. Sometimes on the roadside, sometimes in my back seat, sometimes in the elevator. She never spoke, just tilted her head slightly now and then, like checking if I could still see her. One night, I heard my car keys rattling in the hallway at midnight. Another night, she was in the back seat when my car stalled on an empty road. I heard the faintest tapping on the seat behind me, light, almost delicate, but sharp enough to make my ears ring. I was frozen, unable to move, the fog outside swallowing the world. When I finally dared to blink, she was gone, and the car started again. I went to stay at a friend's place. She said I looked like I'd been in an accident. I told her my car broke down. That night, footsteps stopped outside my door, followed by the light scrape of nails against the wood. Then silence, I stopped sleeping, stopped working. Some nights I sat in the car on that same forest road where I'd first seen her. I told her this was the place we met. She didn't respond, just tilted her head. I must have fallen asleep. When I woke, it was morning, the road wet with dew, the seat behind me empty. I never saw her again. It was drizzling that evening, the sky dim, but not completely dark, and the leaves along the sidewalk were slick with rain. I left the coffee shop where I worked and stopped by the grocery store near my apartment to pick up a few things. Inside, the air was icy from the AC, and the smell of laundry detergent mixed with fresh produce. The floor gleamed under the lights, and some upbeat music played in the background. I pushed a cart into the produce section, grabbed some green peppers, milk, a pack of chicken breasts, and yogurt. The place wasn't crowded, just a few locals in casual clothes, shopping lazily. When I reached the cereal aisle, I noticed a man. He was on the opposite side, holding a box of oatmeal like he was reading it, but his eyes kept drifting toward me. I brushed it off, picked a box of cereal, and dropped it into my cart. Next, I headed for the canned goods. He followed, still pretending to browse, moving slowly. His fingers brushed the edge of a can, but his gaze slid over to me. A little prickle ran down my neck. I pretended not to notice, and turned toward the freezer section. He changed direction too. I grabbed 2 bags of frozen vegetables and steered toward the snack aisle. His footsteps stayed behind me, steady, unhurried, but always there. I stopped to take a bag of chips, and he stopped too, a few feet away, touching the corner of a shelf like he was thinking about buying something. Sweat prickled my palms. There were other people in the store, but it felt like his stare was glued to me. I veered into the household section, grabbed trash bags and dish soap. He still followed, a shadow trailing at the same pace. An old lady was sifting through discounted laundry powder, and a couple was picking out toilet paper. No one seemed to notice him. By the time I reached the registers, he was still there, moving into the same lane. The cashier, a young woman, smiled at me as she rang up my groceries. The scanner's beep was sharp in the quiet. I pulled out my wallet, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw him step closer. My fingers froze around my card. As the cashier bagged my items, he reached over and picked up my bag, just took it, like it was his. Leaning close enough for me to feel his breath, he said, in a low, almost casual whisper, "You really like these, huh?" My body locked up, and I forgot to breathe. He set the bag back on the counter, and walked straight out of the store, not once looking back. I stared at his retreating figure until the sliding doors closed behind him. The cashier glanced at me, concerned, asking if I needed help. I just shook my head, scooped up my bag, and walked out quickly. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet, the sky heavy and dark. My apartment was only a short walk away, but every step felt like someone was behind me. My heart wouldn't slow down. Once home, I locked the door, turned on every light, and set the groceries on the kitchen table. My hands were still trembling, and the bag hit the table with a dull thud. I told myself over and over it was just some weirdo, nothing more. But later, as I lay in bed, it hit me. He'd never looked at the shelves long enough to know what I bought. Yet he knew exactly what was in that bag. The next day, I went to work like normal, pretending everything was fine. After my shift, I shopped at a different grocery store, but I still found myself checking over my shoulder at everyone who passed. On the 3rd night, I came home and found a grocery bag sitting at my door. Inside every single thing I'd bought that night in the store. Same brands, same quantities, no notes, just sitting there. I stood frozen in the hallway for a long time, my stomach cold and hollow.